walk into the home of a healer from 1,000 years ago, and you would not find medicine cabinets. You would not find pills or powders or prescriptions. You would find plants, growing in pots by the window, hanging dry from the ceiling, sitting in bundles by the door. The smell of dried herbs in the air, roots wrapped in cloth on the shelf, flowers steeping in water by the fire. These were not decorations. These were their pharmacy, their hospital, their protection against everything the body could suffer. And today, I am going to show you exactly which ones they kept, and why your home may need them too. Long before hospitals existed, every household had a healer, a grandmother, an elder, a woman or man who had spent a lifetime learning what the earth provided. Their knowledge was not written in textbooks. It was passed down in kitchens, in gardens, in quiet conversations between generations, mother to daughter, elder to apprentice, healer to healer. Think about what that means. This knowledge was tested, not in laboratories, but in real homes, on real bodies, over hundreds of years. If a plant did not work, it was forgotten. If a plant worked, it was remembered, passed on, kept alive. These healers understood something that we have almost entirely forgotten: that the human body, your body, was designed to heal itself, and that certain plants, kept close, used at the right moment, in the right way, could give the body exactly what it needed to do that job. These healers did not wait until they were sick to think about their health. They surrounded themselves with protection every single day. These are the 12 plants they never lived without. The first plant ancient healers kept was one you may already recognize, but almost certainly do not use to its full potential: aloe vera. Ancient Egyptian healers called it the plant of immortality, and they did not use that name lightly. They recorded its uses on papyrus scrolls dating back over 3,000 years. It appeared in the medical texts of the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents ever discovered, listed as a treatment for burns, wounds, infections, and digestive illness. Cleopatra herself was said to use the gel of the aloe plant on her skin every single morning, not for beauty alone, but because the healers of her time understood that the skin is the body's largest organ, and that what you put on it matters as much as what you put inside it. But here is what most people alive today do not know. The clear gel inside the aloe leaf, when taken internally in very small amounts, was used for centuries to calm an inflamed gut, to soothe the pain of a damaged digestive tract, and to cool the body from the inside out. Ancient healers used it for constipation, for stomach ulcers, for the kind of internal burning that no amount of water seemed to ease. Keep one aloe plant on a sunny windowsill. It needs almost no care. Water it once a week, and it will grow faithfully for years. When you need it, cut a thick outer leaf close to the base. Slice it open. Scoop the clear gel with a spoon. Apply it to any burn, any wound, any irritated skin. Or take a small spoonful internally for digestive discomfort. No more than 1 tablespoon once a day. The healers of ancient Egypt considered this plant so valuable they gave it as a gift to the dead, placing it in the tombs of pharaohs to nourish them in the next life. That is how much they trusted it. Keep one within reach. The second plant was not always grown at home, but it was never absent from the healer's kitchen. Ginger root. The story of ginger is one of the oldest healing stories in the world. For over 5,000 years, healers across China, India, the Middle East, and Africa turned to ginger as their very first answer when the body was in distress. In ancient China, the great physician Zhang Zhongjing wrote about ginger in the year 220 A.D., describing it as essential for treating cold, nausea, vomiting, and the pain that settles deep in the joints during winter. In India, Ayurvedic healers called ginger the universal medicine, not because it cured everything, but because it supported everything. Think of it this way. When a fire in your body burns out of control, we call it inflammation. Joints that swell, a gut that aches, a chest that tightens, a head that pounds. Ginger contains a group of compounds called gingerols and shogaols. These compounds do something remarkable. They interrupt the signals in the body that trigger inflammation. They tell the body, calm down. The fire does not need to burn this hot. Modern science has now confirmed what ancient healers observed 5,000 years ago. Studies show that ginger reduces inflammation markers in the blood as effectively as some of the most commonly used anti-inflammatory medicines, with none of the side effects that come from long-term pharmaceutical use. Here is how to use it the way healers always did. Slice 3 or 4 thin rounds of fresh ginger root into a cup of hot water. add a small squeeze of lemon. Drink it first thing every morning, before food, before coffee, before anything else. This is not a remedy for when you feel sick. This is a daily shield, a message sent to your body every morning that says, "We are keeping inflammation down today." The healers did not wait until they were in pain. They used ginger every single day to make sure the pain never arrived. The third plant was kept not just in the garden, but inside the home itself. Lavender. Ancient Roman soldiers carried small pouches of dried lavender into battle, not as a luxury, as medicine for wounds. The word lavender comes from the Latin lavare, meaning to wash. Roman healers used lavender in water to clean wounds, understanding that something in this plant fought infection in a way they could not fully explain. Medieval households kept bundles of dried lavender hanging near sleeping areas, not for the scent alone, but because generations of healers had observed the same thing. People who slept near lavender slept more deeply, woke more rested, carried less of the day's weight into the next morning. They knew, centuries before neuroscience gave us the language to explain it, that the scent of this plant sent a signal through the nervous system that said, "It is safe to rest now. You can let go." The compound in lavender, called linalool, acts directly on the receptors in the brain that regulate anxiety and promote calm. It does not sedate the mind. It quiets it. There is a difference. If you struggle with sleep, if your mind replays the day long after your body is tired, keep dried lavender near where you sleep. A small sachet under the pillow. A few drops of lavender oil on the fabric beside you. The healers knew this was not decoration. It was medicine, and it still is. The fourth plant was the healer's answer to pain that lived in the head and the stomach. Peppermint. Archaeologists found dried peppermint leaves inside Egyptian tombs dating back to 1000 BC. They were placed there deliberately, not as food, not as decoration, as medicine to accompany the dead, because peppermint was considered so valuable, so essential to the body's comfort, that it was believed to be needed in the next life as much as this one. Ancient Greek and Roman healers wove peppermint into garlands worn at feasts, because they had observed something practical. When the air around a large meal carried the scent of peppermint, people ate more comfortably, digested more easily, left the table without the heaviness and bloating that followed a rich feast. They did not understand the chemistry, but they noticed the result, and they acted on it. The menthol in peppermint does something that no other plant does quite as effectively. It relaxes the smooth muscles that line the entire digestive tract. When those muscles cramp, when they tighten around trapped gas, around undigested food, around the kind of bloating that makes you feel like your stomach is twice its normal size, menthol tells them to release, to let go, to move the way they were designed to move. For headaches, press 2 or 3 fresh peppermint leaves against your temples. Hold them there for 5 minutes. The menthol cools the blood vessels beneath the skin and reduces the pressure that creates a tension headache. Ancient healers did not reach for pain tablets. They reached for this. Grow peppermint in a pot by your kitchen window. After any heavy meal, any difficult evening, any day that left your stomach in knots, brew 3 or 4 fresh leaves in hot water. Ancient Greek scholars wore rosemary garlands around their heads while studying, believing the plant strengthened memory and sharpened the clarity of thought. Students placed sprigs of rosemary in their books before examinations. They were not wrong. Modern research has found that simply breathing the aroma of rosemary increases levels of a compound in the bloodstream called 1,8-cineol that is directly associated with improved memory recall and mental performance. Keep a rosemary plant on your desk, near where you work, near where you think. When your mind feels slow, foggy, heavy with the weight of the day, run your fingers through the leaves and breathe deeply. The healers called it the herb of remembrance. Now you know exactly why. The 6th plant was the healer's most trusted companion for the mind that could not find peace. Chamomile. For thousands of years, from ancient Egypt to the monasteries of medieval Europe, chamomile was the plant healers reached for first when a patient arrived carrying the weight of the world. When a person could not sleep, could not stop the thoughts, could not release the tension that had built up in the body over days, weeks, months of worry. There is a reason chamomile survived as a healing plant across so many different cultures and so many different centuries. It was not tradition alone. It was because it worked every time. In ancient Egypt, chamomile was dedicated to the sun god Ra, offered in ceremonies specifically for its calming power over the restless mind. Medieval monks grew chamomile in their physic gardens, the healing gardens attached to every monastery, and prescribed it for melancholy, for sleeplessness, for the kind of anxiety that makes the chest feel permanently tight. What they did not know But what we now understand is that chamomile contains a compound called apigenin. Apigenin binds to the same receptors in the brain that prescription anxiety medications target. It does not create the same intensity of effect, but it creates the same direction of effect, telling the nervous system to slow down, to breathe, to release the grip of the day. 1 cup of chamomile tea, brewed from fresh or dried flowers, 30 minutes before bed, every single night. That was the healer's prescription. Not a complicated recipe, not an expensive treatment. Just this one plant, this one cup, this one quiet ritual before sleep. The healers understood something we have forgotten, that the body cannot heal while it is tense, that sleep is not separate from health. It is the foundation of it. Rest is not a luxury. Rest is medicine. And chamomile was the healer's way of making sure their patients actually got it. The 7th plant was the golden secret that ancient healers guarded and passed down for over 4,000 years. Turmeric. In ancient India, turmeric was not just a spice. It was a sacred medicine. Ayurvedic healers placed turmeric at the center of their understanding of human health. They believed that most illness in the human body began with one thing: internal fire. Not the warming, life-giving fire of energy and vitality, but the destructive, slow-burning fire of inflammation, quietly damaging tissue, quietly weakening organs, quietly building into the conditions that eventually become disease. And their primary weapon against that fire was turmeric. They were not guessing. They were observing. Patients who consumed turmeric regularly had less joint pain, less digestive illness, clearer minds, stronger bodies in old age. Over centuries of observation, a picture emerged. Turmeric was doing something fundamental, something that protected the body at a deep level. Modern science finally gave us the language to explain what ancient healers already knew. The active compound in turmeric, called curcumin, is one of the most studied natural substances in the history of medicine. It reduces inflammatory markers in the blood. It protects the lining of the gut. It supports liver function. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, meaning it reaches the brain itself, where it reduces the kind of neurological inflammation associated with cognitive decline. Here is how to use it the way ancient healers did. Add half a teaspoon to warm milk or plant-based milk each evening. This is what Ayurvedic healers called golden milk, a daily ritual for thousands of years. Add it to food when you cook. Soups, rice, stews, roasted vegetables. But here is the detail that most people miss, and that ancient healers always knew. Always pair turmeric with black pepper. Always. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine. Piperine increases the absorption of curcumin in the body by nearly 2,000%. Without black pepper, most of the curcumin passes through the body without being absorbed. With black pepper, it reaches the bloodstream. It reaches the tissue. It reaches the places where the fire burns. Ancient healers never used turmeric without black pepper, not because they knew the chemistry, but because they observed that together the two worked better than either one alone. They paid attention. That is all it took. The eighth plant was considered sacred in ancient India and deeply medicinal across the Mediterranean for centuries. Basil. In ancient India, the variety known as holy basil, or tulsi, was so revered that it was grown in the center of every household courtyard. Not for cooking, for protection. Healers believed that a home where basil grew was a home the body could rest safely in. They were not being poetic. They were being practical. Basil contains powerful antibacterial and antiviral compounds. Growing it near living areas genuinely reduced the microbial load in the air and in the food prepared nearby. Basil is what healers called an adaptogen, a plant that helps the body adapt to stress. It works not by sedating the body or forcing it to relax, but by regulating the hormonal response to stress, reducing cortisol spikes, supporting the adrenal glands, helping the body return to balance more quickly after each demand placed upon it. Add fresh basil leaves to food daily. Keep a pot on the kitchen windowsill. It grows eagerly in sunlight and needs little more than water and warmth. The healers knew that the most powerful medicine is the kind that is simply part of how you live. Not a treatment you reach for when things go wrong, but a daily presence that keeps things from going wrong. The ninth plant was the healer's remedy for the mind that could not stop. Lemon balm. Medieval healers called it the gladdening herb, and they used it specifically for people who carried a sadness they could not put down, a grief they could not move through, an anxious mind that found reasons to worry no matter how safe the day had been. Lemon balm works on the same pathways in the brain as calming compounds, gently reducing anxiety, lifting the weight of low mood, and helping an overactive mind find stillness without sedation. Brew the fresh or dried leaves as a tea. Keep the plant in a pot near the kitchen. The healers kept this for the days when the world felt too heavy to carry. We all have those days. Now you know what to reach for. The 10th plant was the healer's most powerful weapon against the invisible enemies that invaded the body. Garlic. The story of garlic as medicine begins over 5,000 years ago. In ancient Sumer, one of the earliest civilizations in human history, garlic was recorded in clay tablets as a treatment for infection, for weakness, for the body failing to recover after illness. In ancient Egypt, garlic was given to the workers who built the pyramids every single day, not as flavoring for their food, but as a deliberate medical intervention. Egyptian physicians understood that men working in close quarters, under physical stress, in extreme heat, were vulnerable to illness. And they observed that workers who consumed garlic daily stayed stronger for longer, got sick less often. When illness did come, they recovered faster. So important was garlic to these Egyptian healers that when the garlic supply ran out during the construction of the Great Pyramid, workers went on strike. They refused to work without it. Not because they wanted the taste, because they trusted it with their lives. What they did not have, but what we now understand, is that garlic contains a compound called allicin. Allicin is one of the most potent naturally occurring antibacterial and antiviral substances ever identified. When garlic is crushed, a chemical reaction occurs that produces allicin. This compound enters the bloodstream rapidly and begins fighting microbial invaders with a speed and precision that ancient healers observed but could not explain. Here is exactly how to use it. Take 1 raw clove of garlic each day, but do not swallow it whole. Crush it first. Place the flat of a knife against the clove and press down firmly. Then wait 10 minutes before eating it. That 10-minute wait allows the chemical reaction that produces allicin to complete fully. If you eat the clove whole, without crushing, the reaction never happens. The allicin never forms. You get almost none of the healing benefit. Crush it. Wait 10 minutes. Then eat it. The ancient Egyptians did not know about allicin. They did not know about antibacterial compounds or immune system response. But they knew the result, and they never let their supply run out. Neither should you. The 11th plant was the healer's answer to everything that settled in the chest and the lungs. Eucalyptus. Aboriginal healers in Australia used eucalyptus leaves for respiratory illness for tens of thousands of years, the longest continuous healing tradition associated with any single plant on Earth. They boiled the leaves and breathed the rising steam to open airways blocked by illness. They crushed the leaves and applied them to wounds and infections. They understood that this plant carried something powerful, something that the body responded to immediately and gratefully. The compound in eucalyptus, called cineol, enters the respiratory tract within minutes of being inhaled. It reduces the inflammation in the airways that causes tightness. It breaks down the mucus that causes congestion. It opens passages that illness has closed. For every winter illness, for every blocked nose, for every chest that feels heavy and tight, a bowl of hot water, a few drops of eucalyptus oil, or a small handful of fresh leaves. A cloth placed over the head to trap the steam. Breathe slowly, deeply. 5 minutes. The healers always had eucalyptus. So should you. The 12th plant, and perhaps the most underused and overlooked of all 12, was the healer's remedy for everything that damaged the surface of the body. Calendula. Ancient Roman healers used calendula flowers, those bright, warm orange blooms, for wounds that refused to close, for skin that stayed inflamed long after the injury that caused it had healed, for rashes, for burning, for the kind of skin irritation that nothing else seemed to calm. They called it the herb of the sun, and grew it in every healing garden, in every courtyard, along every path that healers walked daily. Not for beauty, for use. Calendula contains compounds called flavonoids and triterpenoids. These compounds do 3 things that make calendula exceptional among healing plants. They accelerate the rate at which damaged tissue repairs itself. They reduce inflammation in the skin at the cellular level, and they prevent bacterial infection from taking hold in open wounds. Grow calendula in your garden or in a large pot by a sunny window. When the bright flowers bloom, pick them and lay them out to dry in a warm, ventilated place. Once dry, brew the petals as a tea for internal inflammation. A cup each day during periods of digestive distress. Or place the dried petals in a small jar of warm olive oil. Leave them to steep for 2 weeks in a dark cupboard. Strain the oil and store it. Apply it to any wound, any burn, any skin that needs help healing. This is the same salve that healers across Europe made for centuries. The same one that was kept in every home long before there were chemists on every corner. The healers wasted nothing the earth gave them. Neither should you. 12 plants. That is all ancient healers needed to manage most of what the human body suffers through in a lifetime. Pain, infection, anxiety, sleeplessness, inflammation, wounds that would not heal. Not because they were less intelligent than we are, not because they had no other options, but because they paid attention. They watched the body. They watched the plants. They watched what happened when the two met. They observed. They tested. They remembered. They passed it on. And somewhere along the way, we stopped listening. I want you to think about something. If you went into your home right now and looked around, how many of these 12 plants would you find? 1? 2? Perhaps none? The healers built their protection into their daily lives, not as a project, not as a health program, simply as the way they lived. A pot of aloe by the window, garlic in the kitchen, chamomile drying in the corner, lavender near the bed. You do not need all 12 to begin. Start with one, the one that speaks most directly to what your body is asking for right now. Tired and inflamed? Ginger and turmeric. Cannot sleep? Chamomile and lavender. Stomach that never feels settled? Peppermint and aloe. Mind that will not quiet? Lemon balm and rosemary. The healers built their pharmacy one plant at a time. So can you. If this gave you something useful today, share it with one person who needs it. A friend who struggles to sleep. A parent with aching joints. Someone who has been unwell for longer than they should be. The healers always shared what they knew. That is exactly how this knowledge survived for thousands of years. Subscribe to Ancient Body Wisdom and come back every single week, because there is so much more they knew, and we are only just beginning. I will see you in the next one.